WWE has delivered some of the greatest moments in wrestling history, but some of its most unforgettable moments weren't scripted, they were real. A title match that turned into a betrayal, a tragic accident broadcast live, a storyline so disturbing, fans demanded it be erased, and a deal so controversial, even WWE superstars refused to participate. But perhaps if this first controversy had never happened, WWE wouldn't be what it is today. In 1997, WWE was in trouble. Its biggest competitor, WCW, was stealing top talent, and one of WWE's biggest stars, Bret the Hitman Hart, had just signed with them. The problem? He was still the WWE champion. Hart had agreed to leave, but he didn't want to lose the title in his home country of Canada, especially to his real-life rival, Shawn Michaels. He planned to give up the championship later, but Vince McMahon, the owner of WWE, wasn't willing to take that risk. Without informing Bret, McMahon and WWE officials secretly decided to end the match early. During the fight, Michaels locked Hart in the sharpshooter, a move Bret himself had made famous. Suddenly, the referee signaled for the bell, even though Hart never tapped out. The crowd was stunned. Michaels was quickly handed the championship, and Bret realized he had just been betrayed on live television. This moment would later be known as the Montreal screwjob, and it changed WWE forever. The backlash was immediate. Fans turned on McMahon, calling him the villain of the entire ordeal. But instead of backing down, Vince embraced the hate, turning himself into Mr. McMahon, the evil boss character that would define WWE for years. His actions that night shaped the future of wrestling, proving that in WWE there were no rules Vince McMahon wasn't willing to break. But as shocking as this betrayal was, it was nothing compared to the tragedy that forced WWE to erase a superstar from history. In the mid-2000s, Chris Benoit was considered one of the greatest technical wrestlers in the world. A former world champion, Benoit was respected for his intense work ethic and unmatched in-ring ability. But in June 2007, WWE fans woke up to devastating news. Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their 7-year-old son Daniel had been found in their home, no longer alive. At first, WWE paid tribute to Benoit, airing a special episode of Monday Night Raw dedicated to his career. But within hours, disturbing details began to emerge. Authorities confirmed that this wasn't a tragic accident. It was a heartbreaking and deeply unsettling incident, with evidence suggesting Benoit was responsible for what had happened. The company immediately distanced itself, removing Benoit's name from history. His matches, his title wins, even mentions of him on their website, all gone overnight. WWE now faced an impossible question. How do you erase one of your greatest wrestlers without acknowledging why? But Benoit's actions did more than stain his legacy. They forced WWE to confront something far more dangerous lurking inside the business. Because as investigators looked deeper, they found a shocking connection between his mental state and the long-term physical toll of life inside the ring. For decades, WWE wrestlers have put their bodies on the line, enduring countless chair shots, high-impact falls, and brutal matches night after night. But what was once seen as just part of the job had serious consequences. After Benoit's passing, doctors studied his brain and made a chilling discovery. He was suffering from severe chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a condition caused by repeated blows to the head. His brain resembled that of an elderly Alzheimer's patient, despite being only 40 years old. The findings were a wake-up call. WWE had long promoted an era of extreme, high-risk wrestling, where chair shots to the skull and brutal matches were normal. But after the Benoit tragedy, everything changed. The company banned chair shots to the head, introduced strict concussion testing, and launched the WWE Wellness Policy, a system designed to monitor the health of its wrestlers. But this policy wasn't just about concussions. It also aimed to tackle another dark secret in wrestling: performance-enhancing drugs. But as WWE introduced its wellness policy to protect its wrestlers, another dark truth loomed over the company, one that had already led to federal investigations, courtroom battles, and a scandal that nearly ended Vince McMahon's empire. Throughout the 1980s and early 90s, WWE was built on larger-than-life superstars, men with cartoonishly muscular physiques who looked more like action figures than real athletes. Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, and countless others had bodies that seemed too good to be true, and in many cases, they were. Behind the scenes, the wrestling industry was plagued by steroid use, as wrestlers relied on performance-enhancing drugs to maintain their superhuman size and recover from WWE's grueling schedule. But in 1991, everything changed when a former WWE ringside doctor, Dr. George Zahorian, was convicted of illegally distributing steroids to wrestlers. Suddenly, the US government turned its attention to WWE, and by 1994, Vince McMahon himself was on trial for conspiracy to distribute steroids, facing the possibility of prison prison time. The case was a media circus, with Hulk Hogan even testifying in court, but not in Vince's favor. For WWE, everything was at stake. If McMahon was convicted, the company could have collapsed. But after weeks of testimony, the jury found insufficient evidence to prove Vince had directly supplied steroids to his wrestlers. He walked free, but WWE's image was permanently stained. This scandal forced WWE to distance itself from steroids, but even as the company cleaned up its act, the business was still pushing its stars to the limit. And for one WWE legend, the toll of that lifestyle would lead to a heartbreaking, real-life tragedy that unfolded during a live pay-per-view event. On May 23rd, 1999, WWE fans tuned in to watch the Over the Edge pay-per-view, expecting another night of high-octane wrestling. One of the featured matches was set to include Owen Hart, a beloved wrestler from the legendary Hart family. But this wasn't Owen Hart as fans knew him. This was the Blue Blazer, a comedic superhero gimmick WWE had given him. That night, WWE planned a dramatic entrance. Hart would be lowered from the rafters on a harness, portraying his character as an over-the-top parody of superheroes. But something went terribly wrong. As the stunt was being set up, Owen was released from the harness too early, sending him plummeting over 70 feet into the ring below. Fans in the arena saw a blur fall from above, but for those watching at home, the screen had cut to a pre-recorded promo just seconds before impact. The audience had no idea what had just happened. WWE quickly realized the severity of the situation. Owen Hart was unresponsive. EMTs rushed to the ring, and he was quickly taken to a nearby hospital. Moments later, Jim Ross, WWE's lead commentator, had to deliver the unthinkable news. Owen Hart had passed away. But the tragedy didn't end there. What happened next divided the wrestling world. WWE made the shocking decision to continue the pay-per-view, treating the rest of the night as if nothing had happened. Some wrestlers refused to perform, others broke down in tears, and fans were left stunned. Owen's passing wasn't just a tragic accident. It sparked years of legal battles, public backlash, and questions about WWE's responsibility for its performers. But while this remains one of wrestling's darkest moments, it wasn't the last time WWE made a decision that left fans outraged, because just a few years later, WWE aired a storyline so disturbing, so poorly thought out, that even their most die-hard fans called for it to be erased. In 2002, WWE was known for pushing boundaries, often using shock value to draw attention. But nothing prepared fans for the infamous Katy Vick storyline, a segment so controversial that WWE has spent years trying to forget it ever happened. At the time, WWE was building a rivalry between Triple H and Kane, two of the biggest names in the company. In an attempt to embarrass Kane, Triple H claimed that years earlier, Kane had been involved in the passing of a woman named Katy Vick. This alone was controversial, but then WWE took things to an unbelievable low. On an episode of Monday Night Raw, WWE aired a segment where Triple H, dressed as Kane, entered a funeral home, climbed into a casket, and acted out an inappropriate and disturbing scene with a mannequin, implying something deeply offensive had happened. Fans were horrified. Critics and even WWE superstars called it one of the worst creative decisions in company history. The backlash was so severe that WWE immediately dropped the storyline and never mentioned Katy Vick again. But while this was one of WWE's most tasteless storylines, it wasn't the only time the company sparked outrage. Just a few years later, WWE introduced a new character so controversial that real-world events forced them to cancel him overnight. In 2004, WWE debuted Muhammad Hassan, a character played by wrestler Mark Kapani. Hassan was portrayed as a Middle Eastern American who felt discriminated against in a post-9/11 world. His promos criticized the media and American society for unfairly targeting people of his background. The character was meant to create controversy, but WWE had no idea how badly it would backfire. On July 7th, 2005, WWE aired a pre-taped episode of SmackDown featuring a segment where Hassan and 5 masked men attacked The Undertaker. Dressed in black and wearing ski masks, the men used chokeholds and carried Hassan's manager Daivari out in a ritualistic manner, a segment clearly meant to resemble a militant-style attack. The problem? Just hours before the episode aired, London was hit by a series of terrorist attacks that killed dozens of people. The timing was a PR disaster. News outlets slammed WWE, accusing them of insensitive and dangerous imagery, and television networks demanded the character be removed immediately. Within days, WWE scrapped the Hassan character entirely. Mark Kapani, the man behind behind the role, was pulled from TV and quietly released from the company. Just like that, one of WWE's most controversial characters disappeared overnight. But while WWE could erase a fictional character, they couldn't erase real-life scandals, and few were as shocking as what happened with the Ultimate Warrior, a man WWE once called a disgrace before suddenly rebranding him as a legend. But was his redemption truly deserved, or was WWE hoping fans would forget the dark truth about his past? For many fans, the Ultimate Warrior was one of WWE's most unforgettable superstars. With his intense energy, colorful face paint, and explosive entrance, he became one of the company's biggest attractions in the late 1980s and early 90s. But behind the scenes, Warrior was one of WWE's most controversial figures, known for clashing with Vince McMahon, making outrageous demands, and burning bridges wherever he went. At the peak of his career in 1991, Warrior was set to compete at SummerSlam, one of WWE's biggest events. But just before the show, he gave Vince McMahon an ultimatum: pay him $500,000 up front, or he wouldn't perform. WWE agreed, but as soon as the event ended, McMahon fired Warrior on the spot. After leaving WWE, Warrior's reputation only got worse. He made offensive public statements, attacking people based on race, gender, and even illnesses. By the early 2000s, WWE had completely disowned him, releasing a DVD called The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. In it, WWE mocked him, buried his career, and portrayed him as an unstable failure. But then, in 2014, WWE suddenly welcomed him back, inducting him into the Hall of Fame and celebrating him as a legend. Just 24 hours after his final WWE appearance, Warrior tragically passed away. Fans were left asking, why did WWE go from erasing Warrior's legacy to honoring him? Was it redemption, or just an attempt to rewrite history? One thing is certain, WWE controls its narrative. But in 2011, one superstar fought back. Live on Raw, CM Punk grabbed a microphone and exposed WWE's darkest secrets in a moment so shocking the company cut his mic mid-sentence. Was this a real act of rebellion, or was WWE more involved than they wanted fans to believe? By 2011, WWE had become more corporate than ever, favoring hand-picked stars like John Cena while pushing others aside. CM Punk was done playing along. His contract was set to expire, and on June delivered a speech that would change everything. What started as a typical promo quickly turned into a brutal takedown of WWE. Punk called out Vince McMahon's control, corporate favoritism, and WWE's obsession with celebrities. He took aim at John Cena, saying,
"Because you're not."
He even mocked WWE's backstage politics, saying
that maybe this company will be better after Vince McMahon's dead.
Then he went further than anyone expected, he declared, and pro wrestling and Ring of Honor, something that was unheard of in WWE. WWE secretly behind it. In reality, it was scripted, but it was done so well that fans believed they were witnessing an unscripted rebellion. And the irony? Even though WWE planned it, Punk still exposed real issues within the company. The controversy only grew when WWE leaned into the chaos, turning his frustration into a full-blown storyline where Punk quit WWE after winning the WWE Championship and took the title with him. So was CM Punk truly rebelling against WWE, or was CM Punk's pipe bomb exposed the corporate machine behind WWE? But years later, a real-life business decision would prove just how much control the company was willing to exert, all for the sake of money. In 2018, WWE signed a massive 10-year deal with the government of Saudi Arabia, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The agreement, part of the country's Vision 2030 initiative, aimed to bring major entertainment events to Saudi Arabia, and for WWE, it was a deal too big to refuse. The result? A series of high-profile events known as Crown Jewel and Super Showdown, featuring huge paydays for WWE legends like The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Goldberg. But from the moment this partnership was announced, it was met with fierce backlash. The deal came at a time when Saudi Arabia's government was facing serious global criticism, including allegations of human rights violations. Many WWE fans, and even its own superstars, questioned why the company was associating itself with a government under heavy scrutiny. Things escalated in October 2018, when journalist Jamal Khashoggi was killed inside the Saudi consulate. The incident sparked outrage worldwide, with several companies cutting ties with Saudi Arabia in response. As WWE's next event, Crown Jewel, approached, people demanded WWE cancel the show, but WWE refused. Despite the growing controversy, Vince McMahon stood firm, claiming WWE was committed to its contract and would move forward with the event. However, what happened a year later in 2019 would turn this controversy into a full-blown disaster. After WWE's Crown Jewel event that year, reports surfaced that dozens of WWE superstars were stranded in Saudi Arabia, allegedly due to a dispute over payment. WWE claimed it was a mechanical issue with their flight, but rumors quickly spread that this was something far more serious, a hostage situation. Superstars like AJ Styles and Carl Anderson later hinted that something wasn't right, while others like Brock Lesnar and Vince McMahon himself left on private jets before the rest of the roster was stuck on the ground. To this day, WWE has never fully explained what happened that night, leaving fans and wrestlers to speculate whether WWE's biggest business deal nearly turned into its biggest crisis. And if there's one thing WWE has proven, it's that controversy and chaos will always be part of its DNA. Because for every scandal, shocking betrayal, or real-life disaster, there's one thing WWE always keeps moving forward with: its biggest events. And no event in WWE history carries more weight than the Royal Rumble. Winning the Royal Rumble is supposed to be a ticket to superstardom, but for some, it led to legendary careers, while for others, it led to nothing at all. So what really happened to every Royal Rumble winner? Some went on to main event WrestleMania, others were completely forgotten, and a few even left WWE entirely before they could cash in on their big moment. Click here to find out what happened to every Royal Rumble winner, because not all of their stories have a happy ending.